Hi everyone, I'm Joe Fry, and this is my channel, Jojo Fry Rocks. And I have a very special guest on the channel today. I'm going to be chatting to the Lamb. Hi, Lammy.
Hello, how are we?
Very, very warm. I don't know
Yeah.
how thirsty you are in your studio there.
Well, I put the lights on, so I'm an idiot. That's confirmed. But yeah, it'll probably hit like 35 degrees.
So
I've got
we're going to be getting roast lamb, are we?
roast lamb, broiled lamb, sweaty lamb, the whole lot.
So we appreciate the suffering because, you know, as a viewer, especially of your Saturday night live stream, it's absolutely awesome. It's
Oh,
so
thanks.
fun. It really makes it feel like you're kind of out at a disco or pub or well, I don't know what people go to these days, but you know, back
a,
in my day anyway,
a
it
gig
felt
with a lunatic. And see, the weird thing is that, like, because this is one of the things with my channel that is different to a lot of the other channels in our community, is I'm not a gear channel because I never sort of wanted to be a gear channel. What excites me far more than gear, although I do love gear, and I'm the same as everyone. I'm a complete geek over it all. But I wanted a channel because I foresaw a trap for myself. In that I'm terrible at motivation, as you can tell, I'm half hour late. I'm terrible at motivation. And I just knew that if I based my channel around showing people guitars and pedals, etc., either I would run out of things to show people, and then you'll almost have to start sort of self-financing the channel, and I didn't want to do that.
yeah.
Or I think I'd feel like I was repeating myself, every Telecaster, every Strat, because like with pedals
There's
particularly.
only so much, you know, there's only so many differences between two different tellies or two different strats, right?
Yeah, there's that, and of course you've got to get them. You know what I mean? I mean, I've this room rarely sees anything other than that Telecaster, so you've got to get them somehow. So either someone's nice enough to lend you one or give you one. But then pedals are worse, I think, because I sort of built pedals and play with them, and I should get back to doing that because I quite enjoyed it. There's a video of me somewhere building a fuzz pedal live for like 2 hours. It's on the channel. But there's actually only about 6 or 7 types of distortion. They're just all in different boxes, and again, it's like the sort of thing. Like I see Andertons do a clon shootout, and they'll have maybe 8 different pedals, and the conclusion comes to that, yeah, they all pretty much sound the same. And it's like, well, that's kind of, So what I wanted my channel to be about was I wanted to try and get other people to enjoy music as much as I enjoy it when I'm playing it. And there's always been the thing for me is that my passion and what makes me excited is sharing music, particularly rock music, with other people.
And I think that really comes across, like especially on the live stream, because it's just a good time. Everyone,
yeah, that's the idea, and YouTube hates it, so it's like because it's not pushing products and things like that.
yeah.
I mean, we won't go too deep, but I mean, I've got my opinions on YouTube, but I understand it as well. It's the best I can do, really, in terms of platform choice. Even though it's not been very good to me at all, it's the best I've got, really.
I don't think it's very good to any of us right now.
No.
There's lots of weird things have happened with the algorithm, and it's changed a lot, even in the time that I've been doing YouTube in the last kind of 18 months or so.
Yeah.
It has become a lot more difficult, I think, to get views. It's always been fairly difficult, but I feel like particularly for smaller channels, if you don't want to go down that route of like the Mr. Beast style thumbnails and clickbait and all that kind of thing, which none of us really want to do. And if you don't play that game, you're just not getting the views and stuff. So
yeah, I mean, I can understand it from a YouTube point of view as well. I mean, the perspective you've got to sort of take sometimes is, well, what are YouTube or Alphabet, if you want to be accurate, but what are they doing with this? Well, what's their intention? And if I was, the big business guys that had control of this thing, I would be destroying small channels because, and unfortunately, because I started doing this after we were all told to stay indoors, is where I sort of started. It was very rough and ready. A friend of mine was doing quite a good stream, and I thought, oh, I'll have a go, and it built from there. But if you've got
people, I think that's like a lot of people on here.
Yeah. Oh, there was a real
during COVID because there wasn't, much else going on at that time. So it kind of makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there was a real boom, and the guitar industry saw a real boom. Everyone sort of thought, "Oh, I'll learn to play guitar at home," and things like so. They sold loads.
Yeah.
But the thing with the YouTube is if you've got this environment, if you like, this bubble, and what makes the most money are the biggest entities in the bubble. It's a bit like if you've ever played the computer game Spore or Worm.io or one of those ones. The little ones the big ones eat the little ones,
right,
and become bigger. Because what you want is in order to retain control of the content and also guarantee a big audience, you want as few channels of as big an audience as possible, which is what like network television is. It's what streaming services are. They're incredibly selective. This is like the thing people complain about all the time. Netflix get a great show and it does one season and they cancel it, and it's because they don't want to have another smaller entity to deal with. It's easier to have a select number of big breadwinners. Which makes it an incredibly tough environment for small channels, because
especially if you're not necessarily like I don't know what your sort of overall goals or aims are with your channel, but for me, for example, I'm not ever looking to do this as a career option, and so I'm never gonna be a huge channel. I'm very happy to be a small channel and be at a level where I'm able to reply to every comment and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So you're not looking to kind of blow up and go viral and stuff, and you're looking to just have this as a kind of hobby and thing that you do in your spare time. It is very difficult, isn't it?
Yeah. And that's the way to do it. I mean, that's kind of what I've done. I've totally made my peace with it because my figures are awful. I get like tens. I saw Mile House Studios. So Mile House Studios is a good example of probably someone who's going to become a big fish.
Yeah.
Because everything is right there. The presenter is right. The format is right. The audience like it.
Yeah.
And so fair play, he did sort of, and that's also what he appears to be going for as well. You can tell when someone's going for that because this regular uploads, the content's considered, it's edited, etc. You know what I mean? So
but it's also stuff that he, his main thing obviously is his guitar making business, right?
Yeah.
So this is his shop window. Social media is perfect for him to try and make a name for himself, because it's incredibly difficult as a luthier, as a boutique guitar maker, to actually make a name for yourself. And very few guitar builders actually make it. So to kind of bolster his business, he's taken this strategy of building a YouTube following, which the two things are they're just reinforcing each other. So yeah, he's
and the reason I mentioned it is I saw in his last video that he was very happy to have hit 50,000 subscribers. And I looked at his subscriber count, it's 56. So he's made 6,000 subscribers since making that video. Now I get 10 a month. That's how bad. I get 10 new subs a month. But if I do this for another 25 years, I might hit 2,000 subscribers. And again, that's just simply because this isn't the sort of thing that YouTube wants. You know what I mean? I'm not pushing products.
You're not selling anything.
I'm not selling anything. I'm completely irregular. I'm having far too much fun. You know what I mean? And it's all live streams. And then the other problem I've got, which the other people don't have, is I'm playing copyright music.
I was going to ask you about that. So I was going to say, because you do an awful lot of covers, obviously, on your live streams and stuff. And whenever I've done any kind of music in my videos, and I do sometimes, and that was what I started off doing on my channel. Some of those videos are so bad they didn't get copyright because it couldn't recognize it. But,
it is kind of a when
copyright claims where
yeah.
you just don't get anything from doing that video. Doesn't matter to me, but I was going to say, how bothered are you about being copyright claimed?
I'm kind of bothered.
Right.
And the reason is, like, I don't mind the monetization aspect of it. If they say, look, we're going to give you money, that's fine. I don't mind that. But YouTube do other things that they don't tell you. So essentially, my channel is kind of shadow banned. So what it means is if you search almost explicitly for the Lamb Live Big Show Saturday, I won't come up. They'll show you Lambs Being Born and the Genesis album and all sorts of other things before I appear, you know what I mean? If you search for Harley Benton SC500, then my video will show up because you've searched for a product, and you know what I mean? And that's not so bad, but if you search them just for the live show...
They don't want your channel to kind of be searchable because you think YouTube
so it falls into that bracket of, and this is the thing, I'm part of that miasma of small channels that they can't control, because obviously there's no manpower in the world that could check every video that gets put on YouTube. So what they miss in my case is that I'm doing this completely legally. So I pay a monthly fee to a licensing agency in the music industry that gives me explicit written permission to perform this music live and publicly. So I've actually got...
So you are able to actually play music.
So when they say, if you ever rebut a copyright strike, you ever defend it, the key thing is, do you have written permission from the copyright holder to perform this music? And I do. I pay for it. It's about £300 a year because the audience is small. If the audience went bigger, I'd have to pay more, like a radio station. That's how they operate, you know what I mean? So, like, when you get a big radio station, there's someone in the compliance department at the radio station that is recording to the second every single bit of copyright material that goes out on the broadcast. Even if there are myths, people think, if you only use less than 12 seconds of it, it doesn't count. That's a nonsense. Radio stations,
because I've had copyright claims for under 10 seconds of stuff.
If a radio station uses 2 seconds of an Oasis song, they have to log that with the PRS and they have to pay their dues, and it's based on audience size. So I'm part of that system. So what it means is every copyright claim I get, I can defend. I can say, look, here's my license. And what happens, and this is the bit that pees me off, is that when I present my defense, the company that's made the claim then get 30 days to look at it and go, okay, that's fair, or no, that's not fair, we disagree. And every single time they do nothing and let the clock run out. And I think in that case, they should be banned from making further claims against my channel because they didn't engage the process. And that's the bit that annoys me. I can appreciate that YouTube can't check everything, so they're going to, by default, say, yeah, this does look, because it does look like copyright cut. It's exactly how it looks. And then I go, well, here's why it's not. And they go, well, okay, look, you think it's, have a look at it. And they go, no, we're not taking part in the process anymore. And I think that is the worst part. That's the bit.
Then what if they don't respond? Then
so they've got 30 days to basically respond, and what they do every time is they don't respond. So it defaults in my favor, but it takes a month.
Okay, I see. Well, at least you do actually kind of win that argument. But
so then the problem is I would have to do that process 10 to 15 times for every stream I do, because you can only defend yourself on a song by song basis. So it would take me hours and hours. And I actually asked YouTube customer services, I said, look, I've got a blanket a blanket contract that covers all of this. Can you retroactively go through and apply this to all of them? And they went, no, we don't have a system to do that. And it's just like, well, okay, fair enough. You haven't got that in place. But I just think that if someone makes a claim against you and then doesn't engage the process, there should be a penalty for them because they kicked it off. You know what I mean? It's like they're the ones pointing the finger.
Yeah.
So, but
this is illegal or whatever, and I've shown you it isn't. Now, please, can you review that?
Yeah. And maybe next time, don't do it because you know now. No. The other thing that YouTube suggested I do is contact the people making the copyright claims and ask them to whitelist me. I don't think Mr. Sony BMG is going to really be up for that. You know what I mean? Who do I speak to? So, and this is what I say. So these are all the bad things that impact my channel. But it's the best. But at the same time, for free, I'm able to stick up a webcam, some silly lights and some music and broadcast my nonsense to the entire world and anyone that wants to come along that can find it. So that on balance is an epic positive win because how else could I do that? You know what I mean? You could try Twitch and you could try other things, but YouTube seems to be the best for the community. And so
in terms of building that engagement and building that community, and it's definitely the best thing about it. Like from my perspective, it is. And the people, you know, the viewers that go on your live stream and watch my videos on my channel and join in live chats on premieres and stuff. I think we've got a really great core of viewers in the guitar YouTube community that we've got. Always, you know, always engaged with whatever, like you say, silly nonsense that we're doing. Why the lamb? So you were starting to talk about the character lamb. What made you choose that name? What's lamb got to do with guitar and rock?
So the lamb came about when I did the move to Swansea and I started doing the acoustic stuff and the trad sessions and things like that. So what happened was when I moved to Swansea, there was a pub right opposite, and my best friend ran the pub, which is probably not good for alcoholism or anything like that. But I used to go to the pub every night. It was out the front door, over the road, in the pub. And, you know, like any pub, you have musical acts on occasionally. And the guy turned up there and he said, "Oh, can I play in your pub?" And the guy's like, "Well, you know," my friend's like, "Oh, well, yeah, all right. When you want to play?" You know, he said, "I won't be able to give you much money." He said, No, I just want to play. And he's like, "Well, I got my guitar, play now if you want." You know what I mean? So he turned up just with a guitar, and he said, "Can I play?" We're like, "Okay, yeah, go and play." You know, and then if you're any good, we'll do another night. We'll advertise and get your. And he turned up, and he was older than me. He was probably at the time I was mid-20s. He was mid-50s. And he's one of these guys. Lazarus Carpenter was his name. Well, it wasn't his name, but that's what he called himself.
That can't be his real name, surely.
Yeah. And you know, he was. He may watch this, so I don't want him to be offended. But you know, he had a wizened look about him, the look of a sage. You know what I mean? Someone who's been around the block quite a lot. Absolutely fits the bill. You know, his clothes were adorned with trinkets and things like that. You know, and you get a man of the earth, if you will. You could sort of sense that. Smoked an incredible amount of cannabis. That sort of guy, old hippie, really. So he gets out this Martin and he starts playing, and it's just banging. He's just like doing Irish protest songs and folk stuff and stuff he'd written himself. And it was just an acoustic guitar, but it was that thing of, you know, I've just dropped my pick there. Yeah. But very quickly, he basically started doing that rhythm I was talking about earlier. You know, just banging that out. So he was belting that out in this gravelly voice. Singing his fucking, and I'm like, this is quite exciting. So someone said to him, "Oh, Dan plays really good guitar over there. He plays electric guitar." And so I popped over the house, got my guitar, come back, and we jammed a little bit together. And then we played together loads after that as a duo. And he got me into the folk circles, and that's how I started to learn all of that traddy stuff. And we had it was kind of like a gang of musicians that would sometimes show up and sometimes not show up. So it was a bit like almost like a little art collective. The Lazarus was always the center of it, but there were these musicians that could gather around him that knew, or everyone knew his stuff because he'd been, doing it for years, and anyone could sort of join in and stuff. And so there was a group of us down Swansea. There's some old punk guys from the 70s that would turn, and they would play the acoustic stuff, and they were great. And youngsters. He always used to have youngsters like me. So he had a Robin, the guy on the bass who was young, and but I was sort of his main guy. In that, was if it wasn't all of us, it was the two of us. You know what I mean? I always showed up. So that group he called Lazarus and the Lambs, which so the Lambs would come. You know what I mean? And we'd turn up. So I opened, because what happened is we all had other bands as well. Yeah. So sometimes at an open mic, there'd be a band that had someone from the Lambs in it, and then Lazarus would play, and we'd join up and play the open mics and do gigs and stuff. So, but after a while, people went their separate ways, or the youngsters went off to university and did things, and it became just me and him. So it became Lazarus and the Lamb. And then because I had this reputation of being a bit of a picker and a bit of a player, so I used to get singled out quite a lot. So people started saying, "Oh, he's got this guy the Lamb with him. He's really, whatever." So I took it from that, and it just stuck. So Lamb, Lammy, whatever, it come from Lazarus and the Lamb. So that's, but when I say it's not me, it's a persona. Anytime you perform, it's never you that performs. No one stood on stage thinking about, putting the washing out and, having a bath. All the boring things you do in private, you know what I mean? I really should change my bed sheets tonight. I had a sweat on last night. But yeah, no. So I love the studio process. I learned the miking processes, etc., etc. And I spent a lot of time around a lot of what I would call greybeards. These guys have been doing it since the '60s, and they sort of know everything, etc., etc. And when you go through all of that, I think one of the main things I learned is that a lot of this gear stuff is kind of nonsense. When it
comes to recording, then yes, it is, because there's so much in terms of sort of mixing, engineering, production that happens to a recorded track.
Well, yes and no. I mean, they can be. That's an option. But you can just put a microphone in front of a guitar and put it straight in the desk and record it, and that's your sound, which is what I think 90% of decent engineers are actually trying to do.
Sound like they've done that.
Yeah, because when you're in a recording studio, there's a saying they have, we'll fix it in the mix, which means it's recorded a bit wonky, but we can do something about it later. And that was always a joke. It was always a thing. Oh, if someone says that, they don't know what they're doing, sort of thing. You know what I mean? You would chastise that attitude, because the professional attitude was, no, we get the sound we want, and then we translate that to the medium as closely as we can. So like if you go see a band, we want that band to sound like that band. And not all bands are like that. You take bands like Pink Floyd, they're playing the studio, absolutely. But there's a lot of places, like, I don't know if you know the name Rupert Neve, who essentially invented the large format console. And I like the fact that he put EQs on every channel and called them corrective EQs.
Yes.
Because they're to correct a fault in the sound, you know what I mean? So it's almost like you're correcting a mistake at that point. So there was and I think attitudes in studios are very, very different to the attitudes of people who just play instruments and perform music and do all the gear stuff and YouTube stuff. So there's that element of it of sort of trying to get purity. But the other thing is, the wonderful thing about recording, not so much now with music videos, but is the key thing that happens is you put a blindfold on. The LP or the CD or whatever you play doesn't allow you to see what happened. You can only hear what came out. Mm-hmm. And the thing about that is that what happens is, so okay, let's say I've got 6 Les Pauls to pick from. Tell me which one I picked when you just listen to the record and you don't see, which one was it? Was it the 59 burst or was it the Epiphone for 400 quid? You couldn't tell me. And I don't think Joe Bonamassa could tell me. You know what I mean?
No, you absolutely cannot. And I always think on that kind of thing, well, you know, one of my favorite albums of all time is Appetite for Destruction by Guns N' Roses, who I love, and I love Slash. And he recorded that album on a kind of rip-off Les Paul copy that, you know, was he had a real one. He sold it for crack, and then he had to use a cheap kind of rip-off.
Was it a cheap copy though? Because he did have a copy that was actually like there's a gentleman, I can't remember now, 80s 90s, that used to hand make Les Paul copies, and the quality was actually exquisite.
It was probably a good one then.
It might not have been, but yeah. I mean, but that's the thing.
Les Paul. It wasn't a Gibson Les Paul.
Yeah. And you would never hear it and go, oh, hang on, what am I hearing there? That's not a real Gibson Les Paul. Mark, there's a strong suspicion, like Dire Straits is possibly my favorite, definitely one of my favorite bands, and Mark Knopfler's got a signature series Stratocaster with a rosewood neck, and it's a red body, and you look at a lot of early Dire Straits videos from like the late 70s, early 80s, and he's playing a rosewood neck Strat. One of his techs took it apart. I can't remember who it was, or I don't think it was Dan Erlewine or someone like that in the industry took it apart, and they said, pretty sure this is a copy. It's not actually a Fender. That we think it's a Japanese rip-off copy. So, and again, Knopfler himself did not know this.
No.
He's putting it all down. So this thing of, and then I'll see, you know, someone will come on YouTube and it'll be someone, again, great channel, great quality, blah blah blah. But they're like, oh, you know, I tell you one who does it a lot. Paul Davids does this a lot.
You know what? I was literally about to say his name, and I saw. I think what you're probably going to talk about is the video where he's got a bunch of Strats going from like a £200 Squire or something up to like a £50 Strat. Is that the one?
There's lots of them. I mean, I watch a lot of his stuff because I think he's great.
He is good.
His production is great. The way he explains stuff is great. You know, his passion for the music. And I've watched him since actually from very early beginnings of that channel. But one of the things he does, you know, he says, oh, well, so-and-so played this on this classic album, blah, 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 and now I've got one. You know, and a lot of the channels do this, or like Rhett Shull and those ones, they'll do it. They say, I finally got hold of and you know, so maybe on the album, like the year is important for some reason. So like, I finally got hold of a 1976 black Strat, which is identical to the one that so-and-so. And I'm like, so what? Like, who cares? Because if it was a 75 or a 77, would it matter? Would you be, again, when you heard the record, would you go, hang on a minute? You know what I mean? It's not. And what worries me is I feel that people feel there's pressure on them to like almost like they can't enjoy what is the music if they feel like, oh, I've got a £150 Squire Strat going into a £200 amp, and the reason that I'm not getting all of this is because I don't have the equipment. And you know, I think the chase for gear is like a complete fallacy. It's a nonsense, because you can, if you can't sound like someone else, brilliant, fantastic, perfect. Because I see a lot of, you know, and this isn't to knock anyone. This is just what I observe, because the people that I'm using in these examples are actually incredibly good at it, and they've put years of devotion into it. But you see a lot of people, take a fan of like Stevie Ray Vaughan. Yeah. They will be playing, you know, if they've got some success and some money, they will be playing a copy of his Strat that's all beaten up with the SRV rubbed off and the tremolo arms on the wrong side. You know, they've got the amps and they sound exactly like Stevie Ray Vaughan, and I think that's great, but I've already got his records. I can hear that. If you're in a tribute band, you know what I mean, and so again, these guys have got all the gear, all the Stevie Ray. I've got the Tube Screamer from the same year as Stevie Ray Vaughan. I paid £2,000 for it, you know what I mean, and it worries me that people see that then and go, oh, well, that's what I need to sound like that. And it's not. You can sound like that with your Squire Strat, and you can sound like that with your Fender Mustang. Yeah, you can. Or close enough that by the time it goes through that process of going through a mic and an amp and a mixing desk and onto a CD, the person that doesn't see it hears it and goes, that sounds just like Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Yeah.
That's
if you can actually play that kind of stuff, which is that's the more important bit of the equation. But I've found that like patches on the Boss Katana seriously like changed my life. And if I want to try to play a song that I like a Guns N' Roses song or something, I mean, I am still not going to sound like Slash because I still can't play it properly, but I can get sort of 90%, you know, close to that sound by just downloading a patch. So I've not like bought anything. I've not bought any gear, anything. I've just installed a bit of software. I've put that patch on, and out comes the sound of a Les Paul through a Marshall.
Yeah, or close enough. Like I say, it's not. It's coming out of a katana, but it's close enough for you to feel the experience of what that, you know, when it was playing that equipment, what it would be like.
Good enough.
Yeah, I mean that. Everything I do is that you hear on the show at least is coming through Amplitube, because I have there's no live sound in this room. This room is silent apart from my voice, which means the people that walk by must think there's a nutter in here, because all they'll hear me is badly screaming vocals and nothing else. Everything else is backing tracks. I've got a few good systems, you know, like the backing track systems I've got is full multi-tracks, so I can
they do really accurate. So, you know, you've obviously invested in a good kind of bit of kit there.
Yeah, it's a good system, and it's like I say, you can actually mix it. So if I want to play the bass today, I can mute the bass on it, and if I want to play the guitar tomorrow, I can mute the guitar and things like that. But then everything comes out of that, or Amplitube, or sometimes Helix, or sometimes another modeler. But the killer thing I found with playing with these things for years and years and years is that people forget when you're standing in front of an amp for real and you play it, you know, as you do, what you're hearing is not just what they sell you the modeler on. So what I mean is, if you look at the adverts for Amplitube or Line 6 Helix or anything like that, any Quad Cortex, they will show you a list of amplifiers, you know, and they make them look like them in the software. So I'm going through a 57 Tweed, and there's a picture of a 57 Tweed, and so I trust that is what that's going to sound like. But, you know, and they do the same with the effects. There's your tube screamers and your rats and your tube overdrives and your MXR compressor with the script logo and all of that. So it looks like it's all right. But I think what some people, the mistake they make is, once you get, okay, I've got pedals and I've got an amplifier and maybe a cabinet, that's not the end of the signal chain, because what you hear on a produced record then is the desk, and people forget the desk particularly when they're doing stuff in the box, you know, where there isn't the speaker cabinet, you know. But it also applies to modeling amplifiers, because, you know, you can take a live output, like I did it with the Katana when we did the amp thing, is I took the USB out to record. You've got to put a compressor on the end. You absolutely have to, because in the real world, you once you've got the cab, the thing people always forget is the room. Yeah. People forget the room, and they forget there's a microphone, and then there's desk EQ, and there's compression, and there's all these other things that come on after. So, like, if I play, like, I mean, I can just give you a quick example. If I turn off, so this is just in Amplitube, my guitar into an amp and a cab, which sounds like this. It sounds pretty shit to my ears. That sound okay. I'm on the net pickup, but
yes, a little bit unexciting, I guess.
So all I'll do now is put a compressor at the end of that chain.
Yeah,
totally lived it. And all the but what the compressor is doing is it's taking away this huge dynamic range of this cut. Because when you put a microphone up to a speaker cabinet, that's what you're doing with your ear. You're putting your ear. Now, no one in their right mind puts their ear right next to a speaker cabinet. You don't go and watch Guns N' Roses and think, God, I wish my ear was right up against Slash's Cabs. That would sound great. No, it would sound awful.
I have been too close to some speakers at gigs, and that isn't what you want. Definitely.
Yeah. So what you're eliminating there is two things. First of all, you're getting the entire dynamic range. So what it means is that you're getting the very loudest of the loudness and the quietest of the quietness. Well, that's incredibly unnatural because your ear won't do that. Your ear has our ears have brilliant dynamic range, but what they actually do is they move. They've got a built-in compressor. They move the dynamic range. What I mean is that thing of if you go to a gig and a gig is loud, after 10 minutes, the high end disappears.
Yeah.
And that's because your ears are responding to the sound and they're adjusting the dynamic range to save them from damage, essentially, you know. So when you put a compressor on, you're removing that huge dynamic range and it becomes much more friendly to the ear because the ear is now hearing a consistent level. And you've got a volume control on your end, so if it's too loud, you can turn it down, but you still hear all of it. Whereas if you had the full dynamic range, you'd turn it down, you wouldn't hear the quiet parts. So the compressor is key. The other bit that's key is the room that the microphone is that you're in, because your ear doesn't. Again, you haven't got your ear up against the cabinet. You're hearing what comes from the cabinet, but you're hearing what bounces off every wall. And a great example, and again, none of this is covered by pedals or guitars or all the things that these channels talk about ad infinitum. If you listen, a great example I think is "Money for Nothing" by Dire Straits. When that riff kicks in, 80% of that tone is the room. If you go back and listen to it and listen to, there's no, you go, shit, that's an amp in a room. And the reason is that whole guitar tone was a mistake. What they did is they set up microphones. They obviously had recorded some track. And then they were in the process, I guess, of setting up for the Money for Nothing. So there's an amp and they turn up the mics. And according to Neil Dorfsman, who was the engineer at the time, there was a microphone in the room that hadn't been placed correctly. It was somewhere kind of random, and it was out of phase with all the other microphones.
You can hear that. That slightly wrong kind of sound to that.
And that's what it is. It's an out of phase microphone. But then you think, well, okay, so it's not the guitar that's out of phase, and it's not the speakers in the amp. They're all in phase. So how can it be out of phase? Well, it's because it's hearing a reflection or it's hearing a distance away. So it's hearing the room. Is what makes it out of phase. Now, so here's an interesting thing. I say back in the days, it still happens now. You could go to a gig with a shit PA. Am I allowed to swear? Sorry. You go to a gig with a shit PA or a sound guy that doesn't know what he's doing, and you can do this. You can do this at home. If you get two speakers, put them next to each other, and put just a simple sine wave, but the same signal through both speakers. As you walk around the room, you will hear the signal get louder, then quieter, then louder, because these two speakers in the room are interfering with each other.
Yeah.
So that Money for Nothing is an extreme example of that, but that happens all the time everywhere you are, and it's how with two ears we can hear. If you blindfolded someone and walked them into a swimming pool, not actually into the pool, but into the room, they go, I'm getting wet. But if you walked them into the room, they would immediately know from the ambient sound what sort of environment I'm in. It must be big, it must be tiled, because I can hear that. Yeah. So here's the other thing. All I'll do now is I'll just turn up room mics on Amplitude. Yeah. I'll just turn up room mics, and now...
Yeah, and it's the sound is kind of filled out, hasn't it?
Yeah, I hope StreamYard is working properly, because this should be coming through in stereo. In mono, it doesn't quite work this way. Yeah, so
no, it's absolutely. I could absolutely hear what a difference that made, and I'm also always trying to deal with it, and obviously you are as well as a YouTuber, or you know, you're in whatever room you're in. There's you know, this isn't the best room sonically, acoustically.
I mean, this is the thing. Even though you've got your one little sort of mic down here, I can totally hear the room you're in.
Yeah.
If you see what I mean. And so this is the thing that I think people, you know, you can talk about pedals and you can talk about amps and you can talk about microphones, but that's 40%, 50% of the story, you know. And that's the other thing with the brands. I won't say snobbery, because here's the other thing that is like, you know, okay, you've only got a Squier. If you play in a covers band, I've played in a couple of covers bands. 99% of the audience don't know what a guitar is, almost, you know what I mean?
Not, don't know, don't care.
I've got a friend, right, who's been a music fan for 50 years. He goes to download every year. He loves rock music. He's been to rock gigs with me and everything. And he refers to that as a bass. Not a bass, a bass. Right? That's how little he gives a shit about the instruments that are being used.
I'm sure I'm sure it's not something that we particularly, you or I, need to kind of worry too much about.
Edit it backwards. We'll start with this bit.
Yeah. But yeah, no, thanks so much for spending a bit of time with me today and having a chat about all kinds of things, from, you know, your music kind of career and how it started and everything, to kind of how we feel about what's happening on YouTube and all kinds of stuff. But I think that this is kind of maybe a starting point, because I definitely think that there's where we kind of have quite a lot of things in common around music. I reckon we could do some more maybe slightly focused stuff.
Yeah, sorry. I mean, the thing with me is I love it so much I could just talk all day, you know, and I generally do. But
would you like an hour on something? And
yeah, I mean, that's a good way to do it. Pick it, or let people pick a topic. Maybe comments, you know, down below. People can say, "Oh, I'd like to hear you two to talk about this." And yeah, I'm up for that. Definitely. I was willing to sort of give my opinions for what they're worth. I mean, it's my experience, you know. I wouldn't say.
And at some point, I don't know how we would do this, but one thing I do want to do is I'd really love to do a song, like a cover of a song together somehow. I don't know how we would do it, but
I've done a few. Yeah, we'd sort of have to record parts separately. The thing about you can't is I don't think you can. Well, I've seen a channel that do it, but it's quite hard to jam over the internet, isn't it? You know what I mean? Because of latency and things like that. It doesn't really work.
Jam as such, but I'm sure we could try and find a way to do a song together somehow.
Yeah.
Maybe make like a video or something. I think it would be really cool. So
yeah, we've done some silly ones, Christmas ones with John Robson and that. I don't know if you've seen those ones we did.
No, I haven't. I'll have to have a look.
Yeah, it's John Robson guitar. We did some Christmas ones where we all played a different solo over a Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer backing track or something. But we can do something more, you know, less festive and more, you know, more serious.
I hate Christmas songs. That's a whole other topic. But
cool,
yeah.
Cool. That's 1 hour sorted then. How do we feel about Christmas songs?
Oh, don't even. So yeah, no, we'll throw some ideas around. But yeah, this is definitely something that I want to kind of take forward and do some more stuff, either on my channel or your channel or both.
You could become like the Michael Parkinson of the guitar community, couldn't you? You could be like the top interviewer that everyone wants to be on.
I don't know if that's going to happen.
Although he never got Paul McCartney, so maybe you could get one up on him and get the old Macca on here.
Well, you know what? I considering that, like, some of my interviews that I've done, I thought would be, you know, would get a lot more views and would be super interesting. Like I interviewed Slash's guitar tech, you know, I interviewed Jerry Cantrell's guitar tech, and I thought, this is so, I mean, to me it was amazing, and those guys are so lovely and so interesting, and I just didn't want it to end. You know, I could have just carried on talking to them like all night, but I thought, oh, this is brilliant, you know, I'm gonna get loads of views and stuff, because I thought, well, surely everyone's interested in this, and apparently not. So
yeah, I don't think you can predict. The bigger forces. I mean, we talked about this right at the start. And I think what I think with YouTube is there's bigger forces at play that aren't even looking at communities. You know, like everyone's saying the guitar thing is dying off, and I don't think that's the case. I think it's more the case of, like anything, they're going to want to consolidate everything into bigger channels, just because bigger channels produce more revenue, they got more sway, they pull in more people, and they make more money. I think YouTube's ideal scenario will be 10 big guitar channels and 0 small channels. Sadly, that's ultimately
really, you know, do we want to be left with what, you know, Rick Beato, Stevie T, Andertons, and something else? Like, I don't think so. You know,
well, see, this is the thing with Andertons is fascinates me really, because Andertons I find very entertaining. I always have. You know, they got some. I laughed so hard they did a Christmas video. This is going back some years now, and the girls are dressed up as elves in it, but you can find it. And it was I think it was like these Hiscock hard cases was the video, and what they were doing was they were putting a Chapman guitar in, throwing it at the top window of their industrial unit, and seeing if it survived the drop. And no, it didn't. And the moment of Lee Anderton opening the second one and just going, oh, bugger. And like the headstock smashed and everything. It's like, I've never laughed so hard, you know. They know how to make entertaining videos. But what
that's sort of like that.
But the problem is they're also, these big channels are seen as the most knowledgeable or the voices of the industry. And they're really not. And they're lying to you for 2 reasons. And they're 2 very good reasons, though. One is they're salesmen and that's their job. But also there's another thing to it that I get the vibe from like the pedal show and those sort of shows where you think, well, they're not a retailer, but yet they still seem to perpetuate a lot of the, I won't say nonsense, but a lot of the unnecessarily nitpicky detail that is not important that they raise to a level of importance, is because they're not just supporting, you know, Andertons are supporting a shop, but the pedal show, especially with Mick as a, you know, journalist of a long time, they're supporting the industry. So you know, it's still in their interest to uphold the materialness. And that's what it is. It's the material goods of the industry, the things you can buy, where the money flows, you know. But I think all of that is entirely like an annex. It's external to what music is and what being a musician is, and even a guitarist is. You know, even things like Rick Beato, and I'll shut up soon, I promise, but just to hit the 3-hour mark. Even Rick Beato, when he takes a song and tells you, well, this is clever because they're modulating a semitone up, you know, and then you know, this is the 3 of the 5 chord, etc. I can sort of decode that, but what you're doing there is you're describing something. It is a bit like the equivalent of talking about words and letters of the alphabet in the context of something like James Joyce. You know what I mean? It is like, really, it doesn't, none of that actually matters, because you bet your ass when they wrote that song, they weren't thinking, oh, if I do this clever modulation here, blah, blah, blah. They just played something and it sounded good. And inside they went, oh, that feels really good when we do that. Let's do, you know, and it's ear. I said this on John Robson's, because John Robson did a very good video recently where it looks like and sounds like he's playing in E. He's like, what's the key? It's E. And it's actually not. He's playing E dominant, which is A major. He's playing in E mixolydian. And, you know, and he explained it all. And I put a comment and I said, look, I understand the explanation. Yeah. And, I agree entirely with the description of what's going on. But when you play that E chord and go to the D, it is my ear that hears we're in A major. Or my ear knows that my hands need to play what would be mixolydian mode, but that's not what's going on there. It's an ear and it's a heart thing, and that's all music is. Well, the theory is a description of how that works, you know, but it's not what is happening there. So that's what I've always sort of come to with a lot of those channels, is that it's very nice to describe the stuff and pick it apart, etc. But if it's the ear is the you know, I learned to play by ear, so I've never had a lesson ever, and I probably couldn't explain how I know to play a Mixolydian mode over a certain number of chords, other than it feels right. You know what I mean? And I don't think about it. I just feel it, and that's what comes out, and I play the right notes because my ear knows the intervals that work and the ones that don't, and that's all it is, really. That's all music is. That's why the Beatles couldn't write music. Their ears just could hear what intervals were good and what ones were bad. And sometimes you can play a bad one. You know, there are chord progressions in Genesis songs, and there are chord progressions in early Pink Floyd songs. That when you first hear them, you go, ugh. But if you keep listening to it, it challenges your ear to recognize it, and then eventually you go, clever. I was actually pretty clever. You know what I mean? So
some of the bands that I love, like Alice in Chains, you know, they do things where like the harmonies sound almost kind of wrong, because we're used to listening to pop and rock music with like fifths or thirds sort of harmonies, those intervals, but they kind of do fourths and things, and it sounds jarring. And to begin with, it takes a little while, but then once you are into it, it's beautiful. You know?
Yeah, like some of the weirder modes, like the Phrygian stuff and things like that, you know. And but again, the people aren't thinking in that way, really. You know, they're just thinking what comes out, you know.
And that's the thing. People appreciate music for kind of the emotional experience that it gives them, and you know, they love going to see it live. And I think
before I shut up, because I can hear my wife shouting for my daughter, so something's about to go down. I'll make one channel recommendation. If you don't know Doug Helvering.
No, I don't.
Right. So Doug Helvering is a classically trained composer. I believe American, could be Canadian. I think he's American. And what he generally does is he's been doing this for years now. He listens to pop and rock music and on all sort of the classic stuff that everyone would like. But he talks about it from the perspective of what he's hearing as a composer, with a great deal of theory knowledge behind him, but he doesn't batter you over the head with the theory. He talks about what he hears, what the emotions are, and how it comes through and how it all links together. And he does talk about the theoretical side of why it works. But, you know, sometimes he's done Genesis songs where he's had the sheet music on the screen as well, and he talks through it. And it's such a good watch because the guy's passionate about it. He loves his music. You can see he's knowledgeable. But it's really nice to have someone with that vibe. He's got a lovely vibe as well, and he's massively popular now, talking about it from his perspective of what he understands. I'd recommend Doug Helvering for anyone that's a music fan, particularly the rock stuff, because that's sort of out of his wheelhouse, you know. And he'll listen to one of these Pink Floyd things that's got a very unconventional chord progression, and instead of going, he goes, what is that? And then you watch him figure it out. And he might even back it up a bit and say, let me hear that again. He doesn't do it a lot, so it's disruptive. But let's go back again. And he talks it through what that chord is. And he comes to the you know, and there's like, he does Atom Heart Mother by Pink Floyd. And at the end, he is absolutely beaming with a smile on his face because of what he sort of discovered through this thing of just talking about it and going through. Doug Helvering, anyway, I think is well worth
I'll put a link in the description, and I'll go and check that out. Sounds like, you know, because I do like Rick Beato. Obviously, we all kind of do, but he does lose me. He does.
Doug Helvering is a better Rick Beato than Rick Beato.
That sounds that sounds like something that'd be really interesting to have a look at.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks ever so much, Lammy. Lovely to.
You're very welcome.
really, really enjoyed that, and hopefully everyone else did as well. But yeah, let us know in the comments if there's anything that you think it would be cool for me and the Lamb to cover and do a collab thing on. Let us know. Right, I'll let you get on with your weekend, and I'll probably see you again later on for the live stream.
Yeah, sorry I was late.
That's all right.
Well, set a timer on the next one. I won't talk so much. I love talking this shit, but
we all do.
You have to edit it down.
That's why we're on YouTube.
Yeah. Well, we could do that. We could do it like a. It's nice when everyone turns up at the Birmingham Guitar Show, but then I always think this is almost the wrong venue now because we're all at a guitar show. We should all be at the pub, talk. You know what I mean? Like you can't really have a nice chat.
Definitely
anywhere
not
at that guitar show.
The guitar show, you can't.
No, like the canteen itself is just full of people and stuff. But
no.
You know, so yeah, we have to come up with something else. There should be like a summit, shouldn't it? Like they have the G8. They should have a guitarist summit.
Just the guitar YouTube.
Yeah, and we just all go and talk. Like the United Nations.
Yeah, where we discuss the important issues of.
Yeah, and get nowhere. Yeah.
And all that kind of stuff.
We're going to have a vote at the end, and we kick Steve Cassidy out of the UN. No place for a Scot in this business.
He's too good. He's too good. It makes
I love Steve Cassidy. He's funny.
He's brilliant.
He's very humble as well, Steve. He's you know.
He's actually too humble. I've told him this. He always does himself down, and he shouldn't do.
A lot of people, what I quite like about what I do is because it gets talked about, like because it's so, you know, there's a lot of technical stuff that people like, you know, like lighting and the things. It's such a bonkers thing that I do.
It really is.
That the people that do it, the YouTubers, all know about it, and that always like warms my heart that they all know me, even though it's not a big, like to have. Like I'm friends with. You don't have to put this bit out, by the way, actually, because I don't like name dropping. So edit. This is just me to you. I'm friends with the keyboard player in Primal Scream, and Primal Scream are a big band. And he does live shows occasionally on YouTube. He's got 500,000 subscribers, and he has 300 to 400 people show up at a live show. I've got 1,000 subscribers, and I have 100 people show up. And I always think that is such a cool. You know, that at least what little audience I've got are totally up for it. You know what I mean? And I like that. So
it's really lovely, and it's lovely. They're always the same people. You know, they're on yours, they're on mine, they're on Steve's. Or these people, you know, and I just think that's so nice. And they send you photos and emails and stuff. They send them to me as well. And
no one sends me anything, bastard.
Do you show
a little bit, yeah. Not as much as I'd like. I love when people send stuff, like when people send me stuff, like where it's over there. So I have to put.
They send you things that they want you. It's like what it used to be called, you know, Tony Hart. You know, when you. Oh, look at that! That's awesome. See,
loads of them.
And if that isn't reason enough to do this, then I don't know what is, to be honest.
Well, that's why I say. I mean, that's why I've given up on the numbers because it doesn't bother me anymore. It's fine what it is. I think if I had 500 people, because that's the other thing. You go into like a Rick Beato live stream or a pedal show live stream, and basically to be even seen, you've got to make a super chat. And it's just like it's so dismissive of the majority of the audience that they don't get seen. Despite making comments in a live show, I think it's a bit of it. Not much you can do about it if you're popular, but you know, it isn't what I do anymore at that point. You know what I mean? Yeah. I do pretty much read, even though I don't want to play. I do pretty much read every live chat that goes through because I watch the whole thing back again. I watch it all again straight after. Yeah. But after I do the show, my evening normally I get 4 pints of beer in and I watch the show because I love seeing what everyone's put. But it also, I think like a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people don't watch themselves back, or I don't like to hear my own voice recorded. It's like, no, you've got to do that. That's the only way you're going to see what you did.
Yeah, absolutely. I to make sure I didn't, or hopefully didn't miss out too much because I struggle to keep up with the comments and stuff. But do watch it back. But also that's why I do all my videos now as premieres so that I can be in the live chatting to people while they watch it, because I think
you get live feedback then, don't you? Yeah.
And it's kind of like the least I can do. If I'm subjecting you to an hour of me going on about something, I should at least have the decency to sit there with you, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Well, thank you for inviting me, and sorry I was late and all that.
No problem.
I had a proper heart attack moment. I was like, I think what happened was I just my phone pinged and I went, oh, it's 11 o'clock. Oh! So yeah, it's, my gardener, he's very good. I'm having a lot of gardening work done, but we've got similar interests, and we started talking about Futurama, and that was,
understood. But we got there in the end anyway.
Yeah,
so that was brilliant. Well worth it. All right. Well, enjoy the rest of your day, and see you next time.
Catch you later. Ciao.